Abracadabra.
Sarandë and I decided to take another adventure and board one of the Sarandë buses to the historical Butrint National Park. We headed about 20 kilometers south from the city, almost all the way down to the border of Greece. Butrint National Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and sits on a small peninsula surrounded by water. Butrint is one of the most important archaeological sites in Albania and the Mediterranean. Hey, where are we?
I don't know.
Butrint National Park.
Going through the Lion's Gate.
Yes. Butrint occupied a naturally defensible peninsula with Lake Butrint, the Vivari Channel, and surrounding wetlands enclosing it on nearly every side. The water barrier made the city easier to protect while also giving it direct access to important maritime and inland trade routes between the Ionian Sea and the wider Mediterranean world. Once inside the gate, this first structure is a 16th century Venetian tower. The narrow openings visible in the video are musket ports. The tower also had cannon ports facing the Vivari Channel, and its original entrance was more than 3 meters above ground, reached by a removable wooden drawbridge. It is definitely hot. It's supposed to be 90 degrees today, and probably 75-80% humidity. Luckily, there was a thick canopy of trees and lots of shade during most of our hike. As we enter the lower city of ancient Butrint, one of its most impressive surviving monuments comes into view, the Greek Theater. Built around the middle of the 3rd century BC, the theater was not an isolated entertainment venue. It formed part of a much larger sacred complex dedicated to Asclepius, the Greek god of healing and medicine. The sanctuary actually predates the theater, and remnants of its shrines, temple structures, and other buildings can still be seen surrounding the seating area today. The semicircular rows of stone seats rise naturally against the hillside, facing the orchestra and stage below. During the Roman period, the theater was extensively remodeled. The stage was rebuilt, the seating was expanded, and statues of prominent figures, including Augustus, Livia, and Agrippa, once decorated the elaborate Roman stage. This is amazing. It doesn't even look real behind you. Okay, where you want to go next? Nearby the theater stood Butrint's Greek Civic Center, which was later transformed under Roman rule into a forum surrounded by public buildings. Together, the theater, sanctuary, and civic ruins show how closely religion, government, and everyday public life were connected in the ancient city. What we see today is not simply an ancient theater, but the remains of an entire public and sacred district, a place where the people of Butrint gathered for worship, civic affairs, ceremonies, and entertainment more than 2,000 years ago. We now follow the pathway on the outer edge of the ancient city that winds beneath trees alongside Butrint's old defensive walls. For much of the walk, the ancient city lies on one side, while the waters of Lake Butrint and the Vivari Channel are visible through the forest on the other. I guess we're getting a video.
Oh, okay.
We now follow the pathway on the outer edge of the ancient city that winds beneath the trees alongside Butrint's old defensive walls. For much of the walk, the ancient city lies on one side, while the waters of Lake Butrint and the Vivari Channel are visible through the forest on the other. As the trail continues around the peninsula, it passes several of the old entrances into the fortified city, including the Lake Gate and the famous Lion Gate. Today, the shaded pathway and quiet water give this part of Butrint an almost secluded feel, but in antiquity, this shoreline would have been part of an active fortified city connected by water to the wider Mediterranean world. Continuing along the eastern side of the ancient city, we pass through the Water Gate, one of Butrint's important entrances during the later history of the settlement. Just beyond the gate stands one of the most impressive surviving buildings at Butrint, the Great Basilica. Built during the 6th century, the Basilica was the principal Christian church of late antique Butrint, reflecting the city's transformation from its earlier Greek and Roman traditions into an important Christian center. Standing inside today, the roof and much of the interior decoration are gone, but the height of the surviving walls gives a good sense of how substantial this church once was. Together, the Water Gate and Great Basilica show us a very different period of Butrint's history, centuries after the Greek theater and Roman forum that we saw earlier. This displays when Christianity had become one of the defining features of life in the city. As the trail begins to climb around the northern side of Butrint, we find ourselves walking directly alongside the city's ancient defensive walls. Some of the massive limestone blocks visible here belong to Butrint's classical and Hellenistic fortifications, which were expanded over several centuries as the settlement grew beyond its original size. By the Hellenistic period, a defensive wall nearly a kilometer long surrounded much of the city below. But these walls were not built only once. They remained important for centuries and were repeatedly repaired, strengthened, and rebuilt. Following the wall eventually brings us to one of Butrint's most recognizable entrances, the Lion Gate. The gate gets its modern name from the carved stone relief above the opening, which, if you can't tell, depicts a lion attacking a bull. Just inside the Lion Gate is an ancient natural spring well. Carved across the stones in Greek are the words Junia Rufina, friend of the nymphs, referring to the water and nature spirits traditionally associated with springs in the ancient Greek world. Leaving the lower city behind, the trail now begins to climb towards Butrint's Acropolis, the highest point of the peninsula and the most naturally defensible part of the ancient settlement. At the top stands what is known today as the Venetian castle. During the 14th and 15th centuries, this was the main fortified stronghold of Butrint, positioned high above the surrounding waterways where defenders could watch the approaches to the city. And here we walk around the outer wall to the fortified entrance, where we arrive inside the courtyard of Butrint's Venetian castle, which sits at the very top of the ancient Acropolis. During the 14th and 15th centuries, this was the main Venetian stronghold at Butrint, occupying the highest and easiest part of the peninsula to defend. Much of the castle we see today was reconstructed in 1936 during the early archaeological excavations at Butrint, recreating the character of the medieval Venetian fortress. From this elevated position, it's also easy to understand why this spot was chosen for a fortress. From this height, defenders could watch the waterways and surrounding landscape below while remaining protected behind the castle walls. After walking through the remains of the Greek, Roman, and early Christian city below, reaching this fortress brings us into one of the final major chapters of Butrint's long history, the medieval and Venetian period. Here we are finally exiting the park after a long, hot hike. It felt great to go get some refreshments while we waited for our bus back to Sarandë. Hey, look, it's us on the bus.
Oh, it's not a picture?
Nope. All done with Butrint and headed back to Sarandë. Let's go get some food.
Yeah, and drinks.
And drink cold drinks.
Yeah.